The night had settled in around the barn. The sounds of the wedding reception were distant now, fading into the soft hum of crickets and the rustling of leaves in the evening breeze. Inside, the barn was dimly lit, with only a few lanterns casting soft shadows on the wooden walls. The quiet was a stark contrast to the buzz of the wedding outside. Anna and James stood in the stillness, their hands entwined, the weight of the moment settling over them like a heavy blanket. Anna could feel the nervous tension still radiating from James. She could see it in the way he fidgeted slightly, his eyes darting around the barn. He wasn't used to this, wasn't used to being in a situation where he felt so vulnerable. And she understood that. She knew he had always been the strong, silent type, the kind of man who kept his emotions locked up tight. But tonight, she wanted to help him open up, to show him that there was nothing to be afraid of. "You don't have to be nervous," Anna said softly, her voice gentle but filled with understanding. She smiled at him, hoping to reassure him. "We're in this together." James looked at her, his eyes searching hers, as if trying to find some sort of answer in them. He opened his mouth to say something, but the words didn't come. Instead, he simply nodded, his lips forming a tight smile. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of thoughts swirling in his mind. Anna stepped closer to him, closing the space between them. She placed a hand on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her fingertips. The physical connection was undeniable. Her touch seemed to ground him, bringing his racing thoughts to a halt, even if only for a moment, for a long while. They stood there in silence, just looking at each other. The quiet intimacy between them felt natural now. Anna could sense that James was still uncertain, still unsure of himself. But there was something else too, something deeper. She could feel his longing, the desire that had been building between them ever since they met. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for," Anna said quietly, her voice filled with warmth. "We'll take our time. We don't need to rush this." James finally spoke, his voice low and steady. "I've never been with anyone like this before," he admitted, his words a mixture of vulnerability and honesty. "I don't know what I'm doing." Anna's heart softened at his confession. She stepped even closer, her hand still resting on his chest, feeling the warmth of his body against hers. "That's okay," she said, her voice soothing. "We'll figure it out together. I don't want you to feel any pressure." James looked into her eyes, and for the first time that night, he seemed to truly see her. There was a quiet intensity in his gaze, as though he was finally letting his guard down. He had always been a man of few words, but tonight, he didn't need to say much. His eyes spoke volumes. Anna smiled softly and reached up to gently touch his cheek, brushing away a stray lock of hair. She could feel his breath hitch slightly at the contact, his nerves still evident. But there was a flicker of something more beneath the surface, a quiet desire, a spark of connection. She wasn't sure if he understood it fully yet, but she could sense that he was beginning to trust her. "Trust me," Anna said, her voice a whisper now. "You're not alone in this. I'm right here." James seemed to hesitate for a moment, but then, with a slow, deliberate movement, he placed his hand on her waist. It was tentative at first, but as he pulled her gently toward him, the hesitation melted away. The space between them was gone, and in its place was a shared warmth, an unspoken understanding. They stood like that for a moment, just holding each other, the world outside forgotten. The barn felt like their own little world now, a place where time had slowed, where everything was in its right place. Anna felt her heart flutter in her chest, her emotions swirling as she realized how far they had come from that first shy meeting. For James, this was new. He had never been in a relationship like this. He had always been focused on work, on the ranch, on his responsibilities. He had built walls around himself, protecting himself from getting too close to anyone. But Anna had slowly chipped away at those walls, and now, standing here with her in the quiet of the barn, he realized that maybe he was ready to open up. Maybe he was ready to let someone in. Anna reached up again, this time to cup his face in her hands. She kissed him gently, a soft, lingering kiss that spoke more than words ever could. It wasn't rushed or demanding, it was a tender connection, a moment of shared trust. When she pulled away, their eyes locked, and in that brief silence, Everything between them seemed to click into place. James smiled, a slow, shy smile that lit up his face. "I never thought this would happen," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "I never thought I'd be here, with you." Anna's heart swelled with affection for him. "You're exactly where you're meant to be," she whispered, her fingers tracing his jawline. "And so am I." They spent the next few minutes in quiet conversation, their words a mixture of shy laughter and tender touches. The night stretched on, and as the reception continued outside, Anna and James found a new rhythm. They didn't need to rush. They didn't need to have all the answers. What mattered was that they were together, and that they were beginning to understand each other in ways they hadn't before. Eventually, the laughter and music from the reception began to fade as they moved toward the back of the barn, finding a quiet corner away from the crowd. The soft glow of the lanterns bathed the room in a golden light, and for the first time that night, everything felt perfect. There was no pressure, no expectations, just the two of them, navigating this new chapter of their lives together. Anna looked up at James, her eyes full of affection. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. James nodded, a new confidence in his voice. "I think I am," he said quietly. "I'm ready." Anna smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that, while the night was just beginning, it marked the start of something beautiful. Together, they were embarking on a journey neither of them had expected, but one they both knew would be full of discovery, love, and mutual respect. And as they walked toward the barn door, hand in hand, they both knew that this was just the beginning. The night had been about more than just a wedding. It had been about two people learning to trust, to connect, and to grow together. They had found something in each other that neither had expected, and for the first time, both James and Anna felt that they were exactly where they needed to be. As the days passed, Big Bear remained at Martha's home. At first, she hadn't expected him to stay long, assuming that once the night was over, he would leave to return to his people. But to her surprise, he stayed. Not in a way that felt intrusive or unwelcome, but in a way that quietly marked the days with a new kind of presence. Big Bear worked hard around the homestead, offering to help with the chores that Martha had struggled with since Thomas's death. He fixed fences that had fallen over, helped her repair the roof that had been leaking during the rains, and even helped chop wood for the coming winter. His strength and knowledge of the land were things Martha had never experienced before. He seemed to know exactly what needed to be done and how to do it without needing to be asked. It wasn't just the physical labor that made her grateful. It was the kindness in the way he worked alongside her. There was no hurry in his movements, no impatience in his eyes. It was as though he understood the need for quiet, simple companionship each evening. After the work was done, they would sit together in front of the fire. At first, their conversations were limited. Big Bear would speak of his tribe, of the traditions they followed, of the land they had roamed for generations, and of the loss they had suffered from conflicts with settlers. His words were heavy with grief, and Martha could feel the weight of his pain in each sentence. But with every story he shared, she also felt a growing sense of understanding. His people were not the savages that the settlers often spoke of in fearful whispers. They were simply people who had lost their way of life, just as she had lost her own. Martha, in turn, would speak of Thomas, the life they had dreamed of together, the hopes they had built for their future. She described how much Thomas had loved the land and how, despite all their struggles, he had always believed that one day they would find peace. Martha's eyes would fill with tears as she spoke of him, but she also spoke with a certain kind of strength now. The sorrow was still there, always with her, but it was no longer a constant, suffocating weight. It was as though, by sharing her memories with Big Bear, she was slowly beginning to understand that it was okay to let go a little bit. Maybe it was possible to carry on with life, even if the pain of loss never fully disappeared. As they sat by the fire night after night, a quiet bond formed between them. It wasn't a bond built on romance or passion, but one built on respect, shared experiences, and the mutual understanding that grief could be a heavy, isolating thing. Neither of them needed to speak constantly. Their silence was comfortable, and in that silence, there was healing. Yet, as the days wore on, Martha could sense that things couldn't stay this way forever. The settlers in the nearby town were starting to talk. They didn't trust Big Bear. Rumors spread quickly, and word had already gotten out that a giant Apache was staying with Martha. There were whispers of danger, of what could happen if Big Bear's tribe came looking for him. It didn't take long for the settlers to grow uneasy. They were already on edge, living on the frontier where danger often lurked. The last thing they needed was a stranger, a man from a tribe they didn't understand, living so close by. One afternoon, as Martha was working in the garden, she noticed a group of settlers approaching her house. There were 5 of them, men she recognized from the nearby farm. They walked with purpose, their faces stern and serious. Martha felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She knew exactly what this was about. They had come to confront her, to demand she send Big Bear away. Mrs. Hale, one of the men, a gruff farmer named Mr. Rowe, spoke as they reached her doorstep. "We've heard about your guest. We can't have him here. It's not safe. You're putting everyone at risk by harboring that Apache." Martha felt a surge of anger rise in her chest. She had expected this, but hearing it aloud was different. She wasn't just protecting Big Bear anymore. She was defending what she had come to understand about him. She had seen his grief, his kindness, and his willingness to help her in ways no one else had. He wasn't a threat, he was a man who had lost everything, just like her. "He is not a threat," she said firmly, standing tall in front of them. "Big Bear has helped me. He's been kind to me. I won't send him away." The men exchanged uneasy glances. "You don't know what he's capable of," Mr. Rowe pressed. "He's Apache. He's dangerous." Martha's heart pounded in her chest. The fear in their eyes was clear, but it only made her more determined. She couldn't let them push her around. "You don't know him. He's not what you think." The men didn't seem convinced. One of them, a younger farmer, spoke up. "Martha, you've got to be careful. What if his tribe comes looking for him? What if they decide to attack?" "I've made my decision," Martha said, her voice unwavering. "Big Bear stays." For a moment, no one spoke. The tension in the air was thick. Martha could feel the weight of their disapproval, but she held her ground. She had learned something important over the past weeks. She had learned that standing up for what felt right was worth any amount of discomfort. She wasn't going to let fear guide her anymore, seeing that she wasn't backing down. The men finally turned away, though their murmurs of disapproval didn't stop. They left without another word. But Martha could feel the weight of their judgment still hanging in the air. She knew she had made enemies, and that made her uneasy. Still, she couldn't regret her decision. Big Bear, who had been watching from the doorway, walked toward her. His expression was unreadable, but Martha could see the tension in his shoulders. He wasn't angry, but he was clearly aware of the danger that his presence could cause. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to bring trouble to your doorstep." Martha shook her head. "You haven't brought trouble. They don't understand. They don't see you the way I do." Big Bear gave her a small, sad smile. "It's hard to see beyond fear," he said. The evening that followed was quiet, but there was a shift in the air. Martha had made a choice, and so had Big Bear. The world outside might have been uncertain, but inside her home, there was a sense of peace, even if it was fragile. Martha realized that, for the first time in a long while, she wasn't afraid of being alone anymore. The next few days passed in a strange calm. Big Bear continued to help with the work around the homestead, and Martha found herself feeling grateful for the quiet companionship he offered. They weren't trying to fill the emptiness left by their losses, they were simply sharing it, in their own quiet way. Each day, as the sunset and the stars filled the sky, Martha knew that they had both found something worth holding onto, a connection, not just out of necessity, but out of a quiet respect for each other's pain and strength. And that night, as Martha sat by the fire, watching Big Bear as he stared thoughtfully into the flames, she knew that no matter what the future held, she would never forget how this unexpected, brief connection had helped her heal.